I start my day with prayer. I end my day with prayer. I start my consciousness when I wake up in the middle of the night. It's based on my fundamental faith in God and the fact that I am in his arms. So when I'm at the weakest moment of my life, and that's when I'm sleeping, I have no defenses built in. And even my hard of hearing makes it even harder to be defensible, right? I trust him probably more than a lot of people. When that maybe if you're blind or if you're hard of hearing, you go to bed with such connection and such need of God that this is where we are. And I'm lucky because I get that experience every morning when I wake up, every night when I go to bed, and then anytime during the night when my mind becomes back to being awake, God is my first thing. Like, is it cool, God? I mean, are we good? Are we good? And I get out of bed, there's no snakes on the ground, from the old Bill Cosby days. So I want to keep that connection. I want to keep the people that are in your consciousness. And I hear from them on the phone all the time. I'm on the phone 40, 50 calls a day with people. And we talk about you and the collective conscious and how we're trying to get the world prepared. I think it's the only word that I can use that makes sense, right? You continue to fill us with the information that we need, and it's up to us to be prepared. It's up to us to be
That's exactly right. I mean, when I talk about revelation, I don't mean that the Bible's revelation is going to fold out like that, but there is a revelation coming, and it's a revelation of choice. It's which side do we choose to be on? And those who are awake will look at your product, Steve, and they'll say, well, these are wholesome products. These are good products. I want to buy them. And they'll look at a film or Hollywood and they'll say, that's not a wholesome film. I won't go to it. So the more people that are awake, we can actually change the commercialism of America, because those people will only buy or go into products or stores that are actually decent. And if everybody stopped buying this satanic rubbish that's available, it's quite cheap, deliberately cheap, there wouldn't be a market for it. So this is what we want. We want people to be aware, to make those right choices, whether it's body align or whether it's a ticket for the theatre, and to actually force the people that run the world to actually start to cater for the true needs of the people, not some agenda that they've cooked up in the back office.
It's amazing, Simon. They did a study. This study was done in South Korea, and they were trying to get people's wellness higher. Okay. So they filled the vending machines with an apple was like 7 cents and a banana was 3. All this good richness in there. And they use economics to make it a smart choice, a healthy choice, and a good economic choice, right? Well, what they found was the garbage food never was purchased. People would rather spend 7 cents on an apple than whatever it was, $1 on a bag of chips. So companies got smart and says, we can use economics to create behavior. And I think we need to do the same thing. We need to use our behavior to change the economics of the powerful, of the economics of the evil, because we need to stay away from. We don't need to oblige people that are fundamentally bad. And there are actors and actresses that get paid because I go see a movie. Well, I'm not doing that. I'm not Netflixing. And there's people, have you seen this movie? Have you seen that movie? And I'm going, no. Do you know who's in it? Do you know the messaging that they're given? It makes no sense for me to take $1 out of my pocket and provide it so they can do something more evil with it or pay them back for their investment in the messaging they're trying to get. I don't listen to rap music. I don't listen to a lot of things that fundamentally are trying to take me into a different frequency, right? You and I talk a lot about frequency as consciousness. And if you find yourself liking something that is fundamentally negative, okay, some rap music that I've heard, it's got a great beat, and if you had no words to it, you might feel good about it. But when you listen to the words about how a man should treat a woman or how he treats his woman, you got to sit back going, no, I got to turn that off. I got to stop registering that some person in Virginia Beach cared about that, or because they can figure out what channel I listen to, right? We got to get in a position where our actions support our beliefs, okay? And a lot of times we can preach about having belief and faith, but oftentimes we're not willing to make the commitment in our behaviors every day to make it happen.
That's right. And I know for a fact that CIA at some point, working with Hollywood or the music industry, really pushed rapping and black rapping because they wanted to gun the culture with the gangs. because the more young black men they could put into prison, then the more mail bags could be sewn. People don't appreciate in America the percentage, the amount of materials and things made in a prison and sold in America. People just imagine it's mail bags. It's not. They make everything in prisons, and it's almost slave labor. And this is an almost unending group of people going into penitentiary, into prison, working for very little, producing products, and that's a really good way of the organization paying very little. And that's all got to stop. People have got to go to prison because they did something wrong, not because somebody was trying to make them do something wrong. And this has really got to be sorted out. And you guys in America have got the highest prison population in the world, and people should ask themselves why is it? And it's because of all the negative stuff. I think bottom line, most people just want a family. They just want a roof over their head. They want a job that pays them enough money to live and just to be left alone. That, I think, is what most people want. And so when we do have this revelation and we can get rid of all this nasty, evil stuff, I think the amount of crime is going to just plummet. Absolutely, Steve. Go right down.
When I think you're 100% correct, and we get to the RV and we get to the other things that the world has promised us, or our faith, God has promised us, I think these things are going to start to, there will always be evil in the world, right? There's always going to be Satan.
Always be temptation. Yes.
But in the right step for us is to remove them from society, their ability to influence. But one of the observations I made about what happened in Afghanistan was something that I believe directly proves what it takes to make a change. And we took 20 years in Afghanistan to try to convince the population that democracy was better than their current system. And we did all we could militarily, but we couldn't convert the hearts. We were converting hearts, but the hearts were being converted. Hearts were being converted because they could see a better future. Okay, but it didn't empower them to do that. It's been 20 years, which is what, 1.5 generations, maybe just one. So if you've got the newborn who are just beginning to feel that as they come into the age of reason and the age of driving change, right? You get this kind of sense that the momentum is coming. Well, guess what? It wasn't enough. Maybe it's 25 years or 30 years, but a seed of a change isn't instantaneous. A seed of a change is just a seed, and it's going to grow and sprout, and eventually the population will move. Well, in the United States, the culture started changing. The approach to the way we educate children started to change. The way we leveled the competitive playing field and said, hey, you can be different. It's fine. And now look at us after now the second or third generation who's been fed this, suddenly now is in a position that these are embedded beliefs now. These weren't, at one time we didn't have these beliefs, but today the children that are making some of the decisions in the voting booth or with their economics have been brainwashed, have been never taught to look at the world. And we always wanted, I was raised to say, you got to do better by your kids than your parents did by you. Okay. Well, if I could back up and do it all over again, I would rather have my dad as my kid's father than me as my kid's father. My father is spiritual. He was emotional. He had all the things that it took to be a successful man. Okay. As a protector, raised me with a firm physical spanking when needed. And I never did that. And if I could back up, I would want to model myself and stop thinking that I can have the same outcome. And because it's clear the outcome of my 3 children are very different than my outcome. And because the approach was different, I believe that my dad spanking me at the time was good. Now I've been told that if you spank your children, it's bad and you can go to jail because the government says you don't have the authority to do that. They have their own authority to be called with them and how they want. So we might have won in Afghanistan if we waited another generation or two. It might have moved. But in this case, we know that 20 years is not long enough to change hearts, to change minds, and certainly to change the expectation and the beliefs. So
right. Not long enough. In the 1970s, I know when I was in school, School parties would do exchanges with what was still then communist Russia. So you'd go to Berlin, which was still part of the Iron Curtain, and when you would meet people of your own age, the first thing they'd want to do is buy off you Levi jeans or anything that was a designer. And here's the point with Afghanistan, that a small Americanized or Britishized group who bought into the commercialism of the West and thought that they would get a passport and they'd be able to go and work in America or Europe. They bought into it because they saw it as a stepladder out of poverty. So they weren't embracing this so-called democracy because they believed it was something they wanted to bring back to Afghanistan. They embraced it because they were going to go out, make money, and maybe send it to mum and dad or maybe send it to family, but they were going to get the hell out of there and go and do it. Now, unless you can actually bring structural change to a society, you will that's why the Berlin Wall came down. You will my point. You will never actually have people on board with you, and so you could have military and the police, but if people don't actually recognize your culture as something that is valuable, then they will go back to the devil they know, and that's exactly what they did. There is no other way that the Afghanistan army, they just put their guns down. They just put their guns down and went home. Well, how is it that for 20 years, the American military had been training these guys, working with these guys, and yet, like that, they just went home? So lots of questions should really be, they should sit round the table in Washington and say, what did we do wrong? Because unless they do that, they'll never learn. And God hopes that we don't have another war. But if you don't have a plan, then this is what happens. And so it's about family. It's about valuing people. And it's not about walking all over them. And one of the big problems you've got is big government now, government coming in and actually, that's what you were saying, Steve, telling you how to run your life. And, you know, I've got books that are 30, 40, 50 years old about America, and it's about America, the land of opportunity, America, the dream, land of the free. Well, that's all nonsense, isn't it?
Absolutely.
A nonsense. It's a dream that doesn't exist anymore. America is not the land of the free, and it's not the place of opportunity. And that's why I truly believe that the vast majority of good American people are going to say, I don't like the way we're going. We're going to back up here and go back to what we think is decent. I can't believe that the millions and millions of American people are happy sleepwalking to destruction. I refuse to believe that.
You know, we're finding day in and day out, more people are awakening. You know, we've been talking about this awakening that has to happen. And I remember when Trump and Hillary were going at it each other, people asked me, who are you going to vote for? And I said, I'm voting for Hillary Clinton. And they're like, why? And I go, because we can't wake people, okay, unless they have this significant emotional event. Okay, there's something has to happen to shake them to their core. How many Christians were believers on their deathbed, right? Prior to that, they said they were Christian, but they became super Christian on their deathbed or at the morning of their dad or in the passing of a loved one. And I said, we have to create something that awakens everybody, because the direction we're heading is like an ocean liner and heading towards a cliff. And they're going, but, and I'm going, at some point, we've got to make it so easy for people to see so they can be awake and we can get back to what the fathers that gave their life for this really intended for us. And well, when Trump won, I said, okay, so because there was very important Supreme Court decisions that had to happen and appointees that had to happen, I thank God that he won and he was able to put in place something that I don't know if we can count on him at the level we want to, but at least certainly that part of the ocean liner seems to be open to moving us to a more conservative environment. So now that Biden's there and his approval ratings plummeting, the last poll I saw says, you know, it's 38% and dropping, shows me that the awakening is happening. So we owe it to the people of the world today, Simon, you and I and our collective conscious organizations, need to talk about preparation. When someone's awake, the next thing they need to do is, oh, well, I need to know what I got to do. What's different? Where do I need to be going? And how do I connect with people that will be of like minds? I noticed in your update on the 14th of September, you said, if you haven't prepared a food store, you're running late. If you haven't prepared what life could be like for 1 week to 1 day to 5 days, 10 days of life without connectivity, do you have a muster plan with your loved ones? What are you going to do, right? How are you going to make sure that the people that you know and love, and I have a child in Singapore now, I have a child in Oklahoma City, a child in Western Virginia, and I'm going, we got a muster plan. We've got thoughts on how we would get to each other. Should there be a problem, where we could go to connect? I have tons of friends in Singapore that my son would know to contact to. Maybe they could get a word out. My son in Oklahoma City, we have loved ones in Texas that he could make it to in a hurry. So we've talked about that level of preparation as well as food. Now, occasionally I nibble at some of that food we have set aside, but I mean, my ammunition between my food stores, my water stores, that's part of preparation. I want to be a part with you is that consciousness, that frequency, and that connected piece that's going to need. At some point, Simon, we are going to have to hold hands. Right? We're going to have to damn the virus and hold hands and let the spirit, let the frequency of the masses of us elevate. Okay, it's symbolic, but at the same time, it's real. Okay, the people that I have folks here in Virginia Beach that are part of your team. I talked to Amy in Dallas, who's part of your team, and I'm sitting here going, I want to hold your hand. Whether it's through the virtual network or through the physical network, we're going to have dinner because I want to be connected to those people and elevate us. And I think we can drive frequencies. The table next to us when we go to dinner are going to be listening at us, right? And they're going to start to feel it. And I think we can spread this emotion like Fibonacci did, right? As he described the world and how progressions happen. Fibonacci had a beautiful mindset that says it isn't 2, 4, 6, 8. It's 1, 2, 3, 5, boom, 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 and it goes to infinity before you know it. So I think that's where we can be. I think we could be the professors of the Fibonacci expansion. At the same time, I want to take the devil down to a negative integral of some squared, take him down to a level that says, I just lost this battle. Okay. I'm going to fight the war, but I just made this major battle loss and push him back to this area where he's out of our lives and into a mode where some of the weaker folks haven't been able to get back yet, and we can find ways to deal with them. But it's not going to be long before we're holding hands. I promise you, virtually and physically. In Virginia Beach, we will be holding hands. Okay?
There you go. So
we will be holding hands. Damn the virus. Damn what the government says we can and can't do. Okay? And we're going to hold hands and bring the spirit down upon us, bring the wrath down upon the world, and we're going to be prepared for it.
Okay, let's bring the wrath down upon the bad people of the world.
Yes.
It is interesting what you said there. If we think back to Britain and the Second World War, when the Germans were bombing London, there was a huge swing to God. People would be praying that their bombs wouldn't drop on their house, or et cetera, et cetera. Now, what we saw in the 50s and 60s was a large expanse in the religion. So a lot of churches were built. But with a lack of external attack or the lack of external forces, that need for God has got less and less and less. So what's happening now in America is the beginnings of gas becoming too expensive for people to run their cars, for food becoming in a bit of short supply. People are now thinking that the world they inhabit is actually just a house of cards. It isn't actually important. What's important is their belief in God, that things can be better. And if you turn away from God, what happens, and I will say this, it goes to shit. It does. Because what happens is if you...
By the way, that means the same in my English as it does in your English, right? It's going to shit.
Okay. So if you take your focus off trying to be a good person and you just go for where the money is, or you go for the easy life, then you've lost your focus. You've lost why you are here. And the result is that not just you, but all those around you get dragged in. And that's how corporations become, because if the top man is like that, everyone else thinks, well, that's the way to be. That's the culture in this place. And so I do think that there comes a time when those of us are just sick of it, just had enough of it. And as you said, you hold hands, you create a cleansing purple energy, whatever you want to call it, and that just zooms out and cleanses. And those people that can't hack that, well, they're too corrupted. So they're not allowed in our house. They need to go somewhere else. And so what we do is we draw people to us that are like us and want the best for humanity. And there will be a dividing. That's what Revelation was. It was a dividing between those that believe and those that don't, or those that refuse to believe. Look, in Noah's Ark, it took two, so there was one of everything, except the unicorn, of course, but he took two of everything.
Why the mosquitoes? I still don't understand that, but
neither do I. But it was a reboot. Like you switch a computer off, it restarted it and it started it clean. Now, I don't want a reboot where it's cleansed. What I want in terms of humans, being reduced, what I want is every human on the planet who is of age to be able to make a choice. And whatever they choose, that's their choice. But then we say, this is the just and the truth and the righteous, and this is the model that we're going to use. And you guys who've had this satanic model in the past, you're not going to be part of our lives anymore. And so if we can take back the levers of power, it means that we educate properly, we use medical facilities properly, and we judge people through laws properly. It's not just about, I'm spiritual. It's about the whole world we live in and making sure the laws that we abide by are true and just. Mm-hmm. And so we're not just here, you and I, talking about small things. We're talking about something that could be rolled out across the whole world, Steve.
You make me so excited when we talk about these subjects that, because I'm faithful and because I'm a believer, I'm in his hands and he's going to use me. I've told folks in your organization here, I said, I don't know what we're to do yet, but just start to listen, just start to put your ear to God, and you'll know exactly what you need to be doing. So this is exciting for me.
Yeah, you can't be listening to the White House. You can't be listening to CNN. You can't be listening to the BBC. They're all corrupt. So you've got to listen to something that's not corrupt. Sadly, Steve, there isn't much on this planet that's not somewhat corrupt. It's that bad here. So you know that if you've got a true line to God, and the true line to God is always there if you want it, then that will be truthful information. It will be what you're seeking. And sometimes people say to me, well, I know I did all this, I did all that, and God didn't speak to me. And I say, well, because you weren't ready. Don't blame him for it.
Yeah.
You weren't ready for it. Give it a go in a week and see if you're ready for it. People think they just pick the telephone up and it doesn't work like that.
If they believe that and they actually picked up the phone and dialed prayer, maybe they would start to make a connection, right? The Chinese the proverb, the journey to God is one, instead of one step at a time, like the journey of a million miles starts with a step. The journey of your connection to God starts with prayer. Yes. And if you're man enough, or if you're human enough to recognize that and divine enough to want that, it all starts with one simple prayer. And the Bible gives you plenty of prayers to start with, right? It gives you a framework for those prayers, but my God, it's all in front of us today. We don't have to do other than take the first prayer, the first step. And I think we can roll into a much better consciousness. But Simon, I can tell you that there are hundreds of people in my life that are all Christian, but will be real Christians the closer they get to their death, right? It's kind of like, I want to have this world that we're living in today. I'm happy with it. I can take advantage of it. But right before I die, I'm going to ask for total forgiveness and everything will be fine. And I warn them to study their Bible, to study who they are, and to recognize that you may not get you don't know the hour of the day, so you may not get the opportunity.
Yeah, look at the Sikh religion. The Sikh religion, the Sikhs give 10% of their wages to charity. Now, Christians don't do that. Christians might go to church and they might put a few coins into the tin, but the Sikh rule is that if you have a job and you're doing reasonably well, then you must give 10% of what you make to those who are not doing so well. So, there are lots of cultures that actually haven't been knocked off course. Remember, Jesus said you don't have to go to church to pray. You can actually do it in your own home. Mm-hmm. So there's a distinction between religion and being spiritual and believing in God. And I think that if you've got a good church and a good pastor, then it's a good place to go. But if you've got a church, and I'm going to say this, Steve, that's more interested in its nice lighting and, it brings these visitors over from here and there and it wants a new annex and I'd rather go to a falling down old place that was run by people that were joyous and happy than a corporate church. So, you could go to one denomination in one state and it'd be a dreadful experience. You could actually go 10 blocks down the road and have a wonderful experience. And that's the point. And that's why I say to people, go where your heart is and where you feel and you're made a home and the church takes you and you feel part of it, do it. If you don't want to go to church, that's fine. Meditate and pray at home. But for goodness sake, do connect, because we've got to counteract all these electric, this EMF.
Amen.
We've got to battle through all that, which is actually confusing the cells of our body, I think so, and trying to knock us off course. And, there's so much pollution now. And I was out the other day and I see the airplanes are back up and flying. And people are saying, Steve, there's more cars in Great Britain today than there were 5-10 years ago. And the pollution now in some places is back to what it was before any of the controls came in. So, there's a heck of a lot of work to be done. And we won't do it unless we work together. Amen.
That is, your philosophy on spirituality and religion, you and I are 100% in sync with that. And I love that the collective conscious that we talk about is the sum of people, right? Yes. It's all of us together. And God said, wherever 2 or 3 are gathered, I am in their midst.
Yes.
Right? He didn't say if you were by yourself, he's not there. He's saying, I will amplify when you amplify. So the fact that we as a community of collective conscious, as well as our church or our family or the other connections we have, just means that the sum is greater than the individual parts. And I love that about my God. I love that his messaging is so clear. I can have you one-on-one because I spend a lot of time in prayer. I can have you one-to-many in your church or in your community, or I can have you 1-to-5 at your dinner table when you hold hands and praise. Okay. It is so amazing that he's made it so simple for us. We shouldn't have an excuse. We should not have an excuse to pick up the phone and dial prayer and make our connection, whether it's 1, 3, 5, whether it's the Fibonacci sequence or it's simply my dinner table. And in my home, visitors, not visitors, believers, not believers, we hold hands and pray.
Well, that's absolutely fine. People who don't want to do that won't come and visit you.
I haven't had that. I haven't had a personal rejection yet, and I've had folks from different faiths and different religions and never had an issue with someone saying, hey.
Because it's all one God. That's the point. It's one God. We have different languages and different books, but it's one God. And we talk about the Sikhs, and I gave the point about, that's compassion. And goodness me, God was all about compassion. So to me, I don't care what religion someone is. If they truly believe in a religion, then they believe in God.
Amen.
And that's got to be somebody good and somebody worth having to my house.
Well, good. Hey, let me move us on a little bit. Give me a couple. I know in the 14th, you talked about the documents that are forthcoming. Any update on the next round or what we need to do now that we have some of those?
Yeah. Now that my website's back to where it was, I can repost. It was just crashing under the old website. So I'm going to be putting the other 4 documents up today, and that will take people along. I wanted people to imagine a journey. You have your foundation, and that's the first document. And if you don't have a good foundation, the rest of your building's going to collapse. And God talked about that enough times. So what we've got is a series of documents that take the progression forward. And one of them, which we'll be posting, is excellent. It's sort of not just a beginner's guide, it's a really in-depth guide to the running of decision making in the United States. It talks about how the Congress works, how the Senate works, how the laws work. And then another document says how to challenge rules and laws that are being made. Because I think it's actually believed by the top people that most Americans don't actually understand how they're governed. They don't actually understand the processes of governance in America. And so these documents, which were given to mainstream, and mainstream refused to publish them, that's why Charlie Ward and I and others are publishing them out there, are designed to empower people to get the truth and the facts, and not to be hung up on the spelling, but to actually look at what's here. And it's really important documents. And so there are 10 in total.
Well, I look forward to pulling those down and going through them. I'm excited that, again, this is all about preparation and education. So my hat's off to you and Dr. Charlie and the rest of the folks that are committed, right, in a moment's notice to move, or committed that my personality, who I am, I put out there every day. And I'm tons of criticism come back to you guys. And I applaud the fact that you have one course, and that is to continue to educate us, push us to be prepared, because we're in Revelation, folks. There's no doubt in my mind that we are experiencing what God has promised, and we just need to stay strong.
It's difficult for people who have very little money, but everybody can put away a tin of soup. Everyone can put away a tin of dog food if you have a pet. You can, over a period of time, build up a store. You don't have to be the world's greatest prepper with your own underground bunker. But as long as you can keep yourself going for a week or so, that's probably all we're going to need. We're not talking about rain of fire on us. We're just talking about local difficulties. And one state might not see any problems at all, but the neighboring state might have it very difficult. And here's the Christian bit now, Steve. If you have a neighbor who hasn't put things away, don't say, ha ha, these are all mine, you can all die and go to hell. What you need to say is, actually, that's a pretty decent guy. He gave me a lift the other day when my car wouldn't work. He's a decent guy. I'm going to give him a little bit of food. And he'll say, how did you know to do that? There's your chance to educate. There's your chance. And this is what I want people to do. I want people to hold the hand out to those who are open-minded and want to learn.
Absolutely.
Don't bother holding your hand out to someone that's only going to chop it off. But to somebody who's seeking guidance, don't turn them away, because that's one of the greatest sins.
And I think now preparedness, now that you talk about that, is okay. So you get extra food, knowing that there are going to be people, they're going to be at a point in their life where they will want to feel awakened, and you're going to be there to feed their mind, their soul, and their stomach. So don't just put away enough for you and yours, put enough for me and them. But hey, I want to leave you with something. I know there's a lot of stress in the United States and the world about passports, right? My shot passport. Well, I started carrying this with me. This is my passport. Good looking man right there, right?
Oh, yeah, is that you?
No, this is...
I see. I see. You're the one at the bottom. You're not the one with the beak.
This is me.
So you didn't get the joke.
I pulled this out.
The audience will get the joke. You didn't get the joke. The audience will get it. You didn't.
Oh, I didn't hear you clearly.
I said to you, are you the one with the beak at the top, or the one below?
That good old Polish nose, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I carry this now because this is my effing passport.
That's right.
I'm a citizen. If you're going to tell me that being a citizen means I have to have the Fauci ouchie or the jab in order to partake in your little business, that's fine. This is the only passport I need. Right. And there should be no other passports ahead of this one, because nowhere in this passport, in my signature, it says that I am an American citizen. And I don't mean to insult anybody else. I'm just telling you what I'm doing, right?
Of course.
I pull this out and I go, arrest me, do something. But this is the only passport I need to have in order to be and partake in anything this country has to offer, both in the public sector. If you're going to open up a business and you're going to get the local police, the local firemen are going to take care of you if there's a problem, that means you're subject to the city, okay, which means you're public, and therefore you need to open your doors. You cannot stop me from walking in. I carry this now, and I feel so proud. Like, this is my passport.
Well, I think that's a speech for the judge.
And likely it will be with my attitude.
In Britain, Steve, they've done away with the jab passports.
I saw
They don't
that.
have them. They've done away with it.
In Australia, they're going to hold you down and do it to you.
Yeah, I think the fact is with Britain, they couldn't have got away with it.
Yep.
But other countries, they will try and get away with it. Yeah.
Hey, let me wrap up with you. This has been a product that I launched on your show. This is our Purify disc. Our patch goes below the navel, 3 days. One patch wear for 3 days, and then you take it off and let your body come back to normal. It is amazing, both the chemical release that people are getting, but at the same time, they tell me their sleep is incredible, that the cleansing of the chemicals means that...
Have you had a lot of feedback? Have people been phoning you or writing in?
Oh my gosh. We post most of the comments.
I haven't looked.
Yeah. Get back. I have phone calls every day. In fact, I got 22 voicemails on my personal phone to call back people today. And the feedback, and I ask them all the time, what's it doing for you? And what I'm hearing is that this part, and maybe because there's faith in the product, right? And maybe people can connect with it, but as we chemically detox you, emotionally you get detoxed at the same time. Your pineal gland and you dream open up and you start giving more vividness and this cleansing that starts from the inside out, okay? From our brain matter out, and it's pushing all the stuff outside the body. So
how long did it take you to develop that, Steve?
We had a version of this about 3 years ago, sold out in December of 2020. And then we spent the few months getting it reconditioned and looking at the latest, greatest findings. For instance, there's been a lot of information out on pine needles tea, and helps of boosting your immune system.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I spent about a month researching it, getting samples in and testing it. Now,
excellent.
Unfortunately, I can't use it in my product because when I grab the frequencies of natural things, pine tree needles have a lot of mold and mildew on them that I can't get off. But we drink it, our digestive system kills that all off, and it's not a problem. But if I'm going to extract the frequencies of that, when I do that, I'm going to grab the frequencies of mold and mildew. So I actually send it off to a chemist that I know and who's trying to purify it down to 1 part per million, such that if I was to use it. So when I built this product from the remnants of our old product, I was able to add about 40 different frequencies in here that I'd learned in the last 3 or 4 years that can make an impact. So we boost immune.
What's the product called, Steve? If they're looking for
it's called Purify.
Ah, right.
Okay. Our Purify, we announced it on your show. It's been about a month now. So we sold out twice. Our manufacturing runs.
Oh, I'm so pleased because I've had anecdotal evidence. People have said to me that they've got it, and I'll be honest, Steve. A lot of people have said they just give it a try. They didn't think it would make that much difference, but they were blown away by the effect it had. So what I'm saying is that the trouble is, you see, Steve, that there's so many salesmen out there selling rubbish that we get mindset here to not expect too much. So when, like I said to you the first time, when I put the pain patch on, I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And I said to you, don't know if you remember, I hadn't even finished putting the final corner down on the pain patch and the pain had gone. And so that's a shock because we're not used to having, when a salesman says, yeah, this car will do 100 miles to this and 100, and you think, no, of course it won't. So actually it's a delight to find a product that actually goes beyond your expectations, and your products have, and they do. And that's why I say it's not what I'm saying, it's what all these hundreds of people who are buying the product are saying. And, we can't all be mad. We must all be reporting the truth. And that's why I think it's such a unique thing. That's why I'm so delighted to do these shows with you, because, and I will say this, God knows we need help. And we need to be directed towards things that will help us and not hurt us. And so I connect with anybody that's good and has good ideas and good things. And I'm not only have you got good ideas, Steve, but you've got products that help. And that's why I'm pushing you and saying, do more, make more.
We got more products in the works, and we'll obviously be announcing them on your show and give your folks insight into them. But I'll tell you this, people ask me all the time, how does it work? And when I say fantastic, and I try to leave it at that, they're like, no, we need more. So I do videos explaining how it works. But people ask me, where's your clinical studies? And I said, if you want to sign an NDA, I'll give you my tax return. And he goes, why? And I go, because let's say I produce $10 million of business and I get less than 1% return on a 30-day guaranteed money back. Isn't that kind of proof that it works? I said, so if a double-blind reverse placebo might cost me $4 or $5 million, why don't I just sell it to everybody and buy it back if it doesn't work, if they don't want it? And I have a 30-day, no questions asked, I'll give you your money back. Simon, less than 1% by dollar, which is a good proxy for the actual orders, right? By dollars gets paid back out for people that say the product just doesn't.
That's because the product works. It actually works.
Exactly.
Some people that it won't work on because they're so stressed or they just don't believe it will work. That's probably it. Or they're so churned up. Maybe, I don't know, someone died, a family member died or something, and they're just not in the right place for it. Yeah.
We have found that just the standard population, 95%, it's going to have some significant effect on, and then some it's not. People that, and I'd love to talk to people when they call and say, I had a lady that said, it is just simply not working for me. And we started going through the process. So I'm up to 41 journals now. Thank you. Our business is so good. I write all the time and I categorize things. And the feedback I got from her was that the pain patches were not working. And I said, well, tell me about your pain. It's from fibromyalgia and it's all over my body. And I said, yeah, you're right. We're having issues helping people with that kind of pain because it's more nerve-based and not inflammation-based. And the products that I use for pain relief are really designed around inflammatory pain, right? So I started working with her. Well, it's not ever going to work for her in the current formulation. So she's now my guinea pig for the nerve-based pain patch that we're working on. Likely to end up being 2x3 and it'll go at the base of the spine. That's kind of what we're working on now. I'm always going to learn from people that it doesn't, when it works perfectly, I don't get any feedback except another order, right? 44% of the business that we did in August were repeat buyers, okay? And I'm excited about that. So when it doesn't work, people feel bad. And I'm like, I feel bad that it's not working, but if you give me the information that I need, now I can find a way to work in the lab and see if we can't build something even better. So all of my products are on an evolutionary path based on the feedback that we get. I wish I could telepathically connect with people and find out what's hurting them and be a part of the restoration of their health. As I can't do that. I'm capable of doing it. I just don't have the hours in the day to help diagnose people and say, the issue is you need a physical adjustment by a chiropractor, you're out of whack, or you have no magnesium in your system. You need this patch to provide more magnesium and you need to go take supplement. I can do that, but I just can't do it with your 3.4 million people that visit your organization every month. It would be a little hard for me, but I still love the fact that I can make
you do an amazing job. And there had to be someone doing it, and here you are.
Amen, brother.
So let's, Steve, it's been great. We'll be going for an hour. That's
wow. Time flies. I hope folks can engage and stay with us for the hour.
I hope so. I'm sure they will. God bless to you.
In his name.
Take care, Steve.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.